Hello, everyone. Welcome back to an episode of Just Say Guay. I'm your host, George Guay. Today I'm joined by Tim Donaghy. You've seen him in Netflix's special Operation Flagrant Foul. He's a former NBA referee. Tim, thanks for on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so how's this been? Netflix released the documentary. You're watching the NBA change a lot today. What's this all been like?
It's been since I got out of jail in 2009. Everything's been a great experience for me, with everything that I went through, everything that I did. I've been very fortunate to be able to rebuild my life and take care of my four daughters, which was my biggest worry when I got into trouble and ended up doing 15 months in federal prison. So, things have been terrific. I always tell everybody, if you would have told me back in 2007, 2008, 2009 that I'd be in the position I am today, I would have told you that you're crazy. But, I'm very fortunate to have gotten through it.
Yeah, and that's great. Like you said, still being able to be a part with your daughters and being able to do the things like that. That's good. So I just want to talk about in terms of your story. Let's backtrack. Where did your passion for the game of basketball start? Because for someone to become an NBA referee, they have to have a passion for the game to start.
No doubt. I mean, ever since I was little, I loved to play basketball. I was playing all the time, every chance I could get. And my father was a top college basketball official, did the Final Four for 3 straight years. I would travel with him to games and, be able to go and watch ACC games, Big Five games, and, sit right underneath the basket and just have a front row seat to top college basketball. And it just was a love that I had from early on. And, when you get to a point where you're not going to progress playing, you try to think of another route that you can take in order to stay a part of the game. And I thought that refereeing was something that, was in my family with my father and my uncle, who was a top NBA referee, Billy Oakes. And, I was fortunate to have them to mentor me and put me on the path that I needed to be on to make it to the NBA.
Yeah, you got to have that good path, and it's really interesting. Like you said, there was things within your family that kind of led to that, and obviously having the passion of going to games, that's what led to it. What I was amazed that I saw in the Netflix special was where you're from and what refereeing means to that area. Could you just talk about where you're from and just how it seems like becoming a ref is such a normal thing there?
Yeah, I'm from Delaware County, Pennsylvania, and we have a long list of people that were from that area. Maybe not Delaware County, but right in that Delaware County, Montgomery County area that made it to big time sports officiating. Whether you go all the way back to Earl Strom, Eddie Middleton, Joe Crawford, Billy Oakes, Steve Javie, Callahan, Wonderlic, Washington. I mean, the list goes on and on. And, even top college referees and my father, Hank Nichols, Joe DeMeo, Bobby Donato, just a long list of very successful referees from that area.
Yeah, that was really interesting. I think the thing that stuck out to me the most is just you see so many towns that might have a few people, but it seems like that was definitely such a big thing for the area. So what was like just in terms of the time that you repped? You were at the time where you guys saw you ref players up close. You mentioned that front row seat, but you have a closer front row seat to guys like Michael Jordan, Tim Duncan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James as he was really coming into the league. What was it like just to be a part of, that time in the NBA?
Actually, my first preseason game was the Chicago Bulls playing the Seattle Supersonics, and I refereed with Joe Crawford and David Jones. And I remember, Jordan playing in that game and at halftime saying something to Crawford like, "Wow, this guy's just unbelievable." And in a joking manner, Crawford said to me, "Yeah, why don't you, stop watching him and help me officiate this game?" So, seeing a lot of these guys up close and personal is something where you see the greatest athletes in the world. And as you mature and you get some games under your belt, you start to shy away from being in awe and kind of just concentrate on doing what you're there to do, and that's to officiate the game.
Definitely, like you said, you saw some of those legends and the greatest athletes in the world in their prime. I mean, what's like to see a guy like LeBron's journey? Because at the time, it's like the definitive answer for the greatest player ever is Michael Jordan. But what he's doing today, it's like he's making a case, and you got to see really the development of that.
No doubt about it. I mean, LeBron just was one of those guys that seemed to be bigger, stronger, and quicker than everybody else for some reason, uh, and very powerful. Kind of like a Shaquille O'Neal was so over powerful when he was in the post. LeBron was a powerful guy that did it up top and in the post. So he's just one of those guys that was head and shoulders above everybody else. And of course, all his stats and his wins and his points, have shown that.
Yeah, and it's really incredible. I'm 26 years old, and the fact that it's still going on and he's playing at elite level. Maybe he'll get another championship. Who knows? So, like you said, you have such a big story that's told through the documentary on Netflix, the special. But something that's really not talked about a lot is that you were part of one of the big games of the 2000s with the Malice at the Palace, with Ron Artest and Ben Wallace and Rasheed Wallace. Just, what was it like being a part of that? Because that's definitely another big moment in NBA history.
Yeah, for sure. Scary. You talk about officiating a game and it almost being over, not really a close game, just going through the motions of, getting through it and, shooting a foul shot. And all of a sudden, uh, you know, two guys start to shove each other and it spills over into the stands. And, when the fans start getting involved with the players and things are flying all over the place and you keep thinking it's going to stop at some point, it just continues to go on and on and on to the point where I don't think we were able to play the last 40 seconds of the game. So it was just chaos that you never hoped to be a part of, and you saw things that you didn't think you'd ever see. There was a heavy-set Mexican kid that came running onto the floor, and Jermaine O'Neal wound up and punched him. And if it wasn't for the floor being so wet and Jermaine losing his back foot, that kid would be dead because he hit him square in the jaw and he went down. And, I thought he was never going to get back up, but, they were able to get him off the floor. So just, seeing a lot of these big, powerful players fighting with the fans. And, I always wondered, what would make some of these fans think that they could get into a fist fight with some of these big 7 foot professional athletes and hold their own. Is kind of comical.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the thing. You see like a sport in hockey and their fans, others fighting within the game, and people say, "Oh, why can't they let basketball players fight on the court like that?" And just, like you said, it's the chaos that can come with it. You saw that firsthand. That's why they can't do it. Did anything with you as a ref, uh, carry over post game? Because when the game ends, you still got to go home and things like that. Did you have anything happen with like a player or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I write about it in my book, Personal Foul, at length about Rasheed Wallace and being in Portland and, giving him a technical foul and them winning by 30 points, him having 30 points, having one of his best games of, his season, and him being so upset that I gave him that technical foul that he waited for me outside in the parking lot. And when I came walking out, he jumped out from behind a pylon and basically started giving me a bunch of grief and wanted to fight me. And, if it wasn't for Brevin Knight and a lot of security guards holding him back, I'd probably still be eating through a straw today.
Yeah, that's an incredible story. I grew up watching Rasheed Wallace and players like him on that team, Ben Wallace, say Jermaine O'Neal. I don't think we'll see guys like that today, and I think like that again. And I think with the referees, maybe that's probably for the best. That's got to be one incredible story, and definitely something that's so scary. So, obviously, just want to get into what a lot of the Netflix special talked about, the betting and refing, and that combination, those two things colliding. I was just wondering, where did it really all begin?
Basically, when I originally joined a country club and started betting on golf and meeting a bunch of guys that enjoyed gambling, playing cards in the locker room, getting in a limo and going down to Atlantic City. I just started letting gambling consume me. And, unfortunately, I got in over my head and I started to gamble on college and professional sports. And then eventually, the NBA and then NBA games that I actually officiated. So just a slippery slope that, I went down and I crossed a line that I should have never been near. And, unfortunately for me, it cost me a lot. It cost me my career, my marriage, and my freedom. So, cautionary tale for everybody out there that if you are going to gamble, make sure that you're doing it in a responsible manner so that, you stay in control and don't end up doing things that you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, I definitely think that's great advice given how popular sports betting has become, and I appreciate you willing to talk about it. So one thing I found so interesting, during that Netflix special is just what you're talking about in terms of what led to making the bets, and just in terms of access to information, knowing that the refs were going to call certain things throughout the game, like if Kobe Bryant was going to be called for more, for contact, pick the Lakers and things like that. Referee meetings, knowing what to do and things like that. Could you just talk about what those meetings are like for the officials, and just what you kind of know from things like that?
Yeah, I mean that one you just touched on with Kobe Bryant is a great example. There was a DVD that Phil Jackson had sent into the NBA office of 30 plays of Kobe Bryant going to the basket, getting fouled, and the referee's not blowing the whistle, and him complaining to the league office. There, people in the league office relayed that to the group supervisors. I had one of the first games with Kobe after that DVD went into the NBA office, and the group supervisor said, "Hey, listen, make sure you keep a good eye when Kobe goes to the hole tonight." This was in a meeting in the afternoon because, Phil Jackson sent him this tape. He's going to the hole, he's getting hit, and we're not calling it. We got to make sure that, we don't miss these plays. So I left that meeting and I thought to myself, he's going to go to the line probably 20 times tonight. The Lakers are going to win by 10. The line in the paper is 3 or 4. And I was taking that information and I was relaying that back to a buddy of mine who was, placing bets.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you bring that up, just because we see so much. It still goes on today. The stars get a lot of the calls and they shoot more free throws. You've seen some games where certain all stars teams will shoot like 20 or 25 more free throws than the other team, and it raises some concerns for fans. And I was just wondering, what's your take, because this was talked about in the special, just how a lot of fans today, they worry that if they have to go on the road in a game 7, they're going to be worried that they might not get the calls from the refs or things like that. And I was a bit too young to remember. I think I was 4 or 5 years old for that Sacramento game versus the Lakers, that brought it to game 7 and gave the Lakers another shot. But, should fans be worried about that in terms of, if their team's going on the road, they don't have LeBron James or Steph, that it might be hard to win that game 7?
No doubt they should be worried because if you look at the percentages, game 7s are won by the home team, over 70% of the time. So it's very hard to go on the road and win a game 7, for whatever reason, whether it's, the Lakers in a game 7 where it's better for global attention for the NBA, for the Lakers to be in the NBA finals as it was with that, situation with the Sacramento Kings and the Lakers. For whatever reason, the league likes, the bigger market teams to be in the finals, so, and advance in the playoffs. So it's difficult, and unfortunately for the Kings, they had the best team in the league at that time. I think it was in 2002, and they should have won that game 6 and went on and probably beaten New Jersey and had a ring on their finger. But unfortunately, Bavetta, Bernhardt, and Delaney were officials in that game, and Dick Bavetta said he was the NBA's go-to guy. He was put on game 6s to push game 7s because that was what was good for the league. And, the game was refereed terribly, and yet those 3 referees still advanced and refereed in the NBA Finals and got an extra $30,000 bonus. So where can you perform your job and do a job that is rated as low as it possibly could get rated, yet you're still given a promotion a week later and officiating the NBA Finals? So, at the very least, those guys should have been, knocked out of the playoffs and not moved on and gotten that extra bonus, but they were, and they were because that's what was good for the league, to have the Lakers move on, and they did what the league wanted them to do.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting. That must have been frustrating as a ref at the time to see that those guys got promoted. I mean, why do you think it seems like that the NBA fans have those worries? I'm not saying in terms of what goes on at the meetings and things like that, but you just watch other sports. Like, I know the NFL are really bad refs this year, just in terms of calling the game, but for an NHL fan like myself, I wouldn't have to worry about, Connor McDavid getting other calls across the ice because, refs don't call fouls in hockey, they call penalties. But do you think that's something that could happen eventually, like that kind of star treatment?
Sure. I think it's what for the NBA it is. It's the star treatment. Sell out the arenas and they sell jerseys and they sell sneakers and it's all about the almighty dollar. And that's why now you're seeing a lot of the approval in gambling in a lot of the states, and it's a situation where it's going to bring in more revenue for the sports leagues, and eventually you're going to see kiosk machines in every NBA arena to where they're basically taking bets on these games and bringing in more revenue that way. So there's no doubt that it's going to continue to be star treatment in the NBA because it's a star-driven league and it's what brings in the most money for them. So there's no doubt that that's going to continue.
Yeah, for sure. Seems like it. And to hear from someone who's been involved in the NBA and how it works, it's just that's definitely interesting to see how it will play out. So my only question, more just about what went on with you specifically, was just how did it turn into a bigger project? You're involved with a couple more people, but eventually it started out as something that you were doing by yourself, just betting on the games. But how did it kind of grow into a bigger thing?
What happened was is the guy that was placing the bets was placing them with a guy who had ties to organized crime, and they were piggybacking off the bets. And then when me and this guy stopped doing it, I had a game in Philadelphia, and this guy named James Batista, who had ties to the organized crime, the Gambino crime family in New York, had another guy set up a meeting with me and picked me up and basically took me for a ride and said that he wanted to continue to get those picks. And if not, he was going to expose me for gambling, or worse yet, have somebody visit my wife and kids in Florida. So I, continued to give him the picks. And it was a situation where they were making millions and millions of dollars off of it. And he was such a drug addict and a pillhead that he couldn't keep his mouth shut, and it was heard over a Gambino wiretap, and that's how it was discovered by the FBI.
Wow, that is really intense, and that is really awful that family was brought into it, and that's just the worst case scenario and anything like that. So, you know, it all played out. You got caught for doing this, and you had to serve time for it. One thing I want to get into is just how challenging is it today to see that these sports leagues have had quote unquote marriages with betting companies. You see FanDuel on jerseys and ads, and you see a DraftKings sportsbook ad every single commercial. I think DraftKings is at every MLB stadium. I mean, how tough is that? I know that your situation was about a decade and a half ago, but not too long down the road, it seems like it's everywhere now.
No doubt it is everywhere, and like we talked about earlier, it's a situation where it's bringing in revenue for the league. So, that's what they need and that's what they want. So it's like almost like they sold their soul to the devil, where they would never have touched that in the past, and now that they're all over it. So, I think my situation kind of pushed it forward a little bit. When David Stern didn't realize how much people gambled, and started to do some research into it, because I remember when he stood up at the press conference, he said in front of everybody that as an official, legal gambling will cost you your job because we weren't allowed to place a bet of any kind, but illegal gambling will cost you your freedom. Then when he did some research, he found out that 58 out of 60 referees gambled, and he couldn't fire everybody, so that he kind of backtracked that. And I think after he started to do a little research and found out how much people gamble, not only referees but players and other people, it moved it forward a little bit quicker when it talked about revenue and what it meant for the league.
Yeah, and like you said, not only bringing in revenue to the leagues, but to the states that legalize it. We've seen that Massachusetts has become a very active state. Are you worried as a fan of sports that with the players seeing these headlines now, just guys like Calvin Ridley, Shane Pinto, it seems like they're not really uh, betting on their teams, but like you said before, we know it could be that case. I mean, do those headlines kind of worry you as a sports fan?
I think we'd be naive to think that all this is going on and they're betting on all these things and they're not betting on their own teams. I think you can go back to Pete Rose, and he was betting on the Major League Baseball, and I think these football guys and these college guys, no doubt are betting on their own teams. And I think the next big scandal is going to be one of these lower Division I college athletes that isn't going to make it to the pros and is approached by somebody and says, I'll put $50,000 in your pocket. Give me 3 games, 3 games that you're supposed to win by 15 points. Just win by 10, and that's the way we can do it. So you're not giving your team a loss, but you're still putting the money in our pockets, and we're going to put money in your pockets because you're never going to go pro. You're never going to get any money out of this. So why not take advantage of this now? And there's going to be people that are going to jump at that.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting down the stretch to see what happens, especially, it seems like a few years ago, there's only a few states that were legalized in sports betting, but now the fact that with state borders and a lot more states getting involved, who knows what could happen. So just want to talk a little basketball. I know you're definitely still a big NBA fan, just watching basketball, but what do you think of how the league has gone in the direction just of how the sport's played? I know that when you were reffing, the big man was definitely more valuable. Guys like Shaq and Dirk, Duncan, they could pound the ball inside. Kevin Garnett. I watched the Boston Celtics, my team the other night. They put up 58 threes and tried to outshoot the Golden State Warriors. I just think it's getting a bit out of hand. And before we know it, maybe some of the traditional centers aren't really going to be a part of the NBA anymore.
I think you're already seeing that they're getting away from that, and it's all about scoring for the league. They want a free flowing, up and down, fast paced game because they feel that that's what is exciting and that's what's going to draw the fans in. So that's why you see a lot of the ticky tack fouls because they want a lot of freedom of movement. They want the players to be able to run up and down the floor without interruption. And you're never going to see that Detroit Pistons, roughhouse basketball that you saw in the 80s and 90s. It's something that's a thing of the past. They want this game to be, very free flowing, a high scoring. They want those games, 125 to 123, because that's what's going to keep everyone tuned into the TV and, keep everybody in the building.
For sure. And it's just amazing that one guy, I mean, probably two, Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, they really changed it. And it seems like, we're not going to go back to the way it once was. In terms of just the culture of the NBA, what do you like about it or not like about it? You grew up with, watching guys like Bird and Magic. You ref Jordan, you ref Kobe, guys that really played their prime with one team. And I think LeBron changed that. Whether it was good for the bad or not, I don't really like it. But with the decision going to Miami, and you got guys bouncing around, with Harden, 3 teams in 2 years. It's just, do you think this is not good for the league to have all these all stars in multiple spots in multiple years?
I think if it wasn't good for the league, they would stop it. What's ever good for the league, they're going to, allow to happen, and they have the power to, stop it immediately. And I think that they like these teams that, quote unquote, superstar teams and, sell out away arenas each and every night and, garner that global attention. And that's what the league is always after. So, when you have 3 guys on a team and, their record is, 90% winning percentage, it's a situation where it's in the media a lot and it's garnering a lot of attention and the league likes that.
Yeah, the league wants what's best for the league. I got to admit personally, I'm really against free agents moving constantly, but the Celtics got Porzingis, where they got Kyrie Irving, guys who moved around a lot, and it benefits your own team. I think a lot of people are like me, well, they're okay with it when it happens and benefits their own team. But Tim, thank you so much for doing this, and wishing you the best of a good holiday season.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, have a good one.